Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it. It is episode 26. We are halfway through the year. 2020 has felt like 20 different years all in one, but here we are. It is episode 26. Let's get down to business, baby. So on today's episode, I have Joe DiClemente on. He is a close friend of mine from college. I actually traveled to both Australia and to Thailand with Joe, so we've been around the world together. And I wanted to bring on Joe to talk about taking chances. For about 5 or 6 years, he worked with GM fresh out of college, and he took a major chance by moving to a different company when he could have stayed in something that was safe and secure, but didn't have the growth that he was looking for, and he just wasn't passionate about what he was doing. And so he took a risk, and he's been at his new company for about 2 years now as a vice president. And so I wanted to have him on to talk about taking chances, taking risks. I think that he's a great person to speak about that, and we had an awesome interview just about life in general. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Joe, and he'll take it from here. Awesome. So I have my good friend Joe DiClemente on for episode 26. We are officially at the halfway mark of this entire year of doing podcasts, which is crazy to think. I've been around the world with this man. I've gone to Australia with this man. I've gone to Thailand with this man. Joe, what have you been doing since our world travels, since college?
What's up, guys? You know, I first off and foremost, thank you for having me on. I've been following you ever since you started the quarter life crisis, you know, and quite honestly, I don't think there's enough attention on this topic at all. You know, I think you're doing great things. Keep it up. I have a special surprise.
Ooh, okay.
So let's just say what I'm about to show you, none of you guys will understand, but for all those Aussie folks that are watching that went on that study abroad trip, you guys will get it, but I'll leave it at this. I got the key.
Oh, man.
I'll leave it at that.
How many moves has that made?
I don't know. Dude, I've had it.
That's like like 7 years ago, or that's like 8 years ago.
Yeah, it's from
2610, dude. Dang.
Yeah.
That was a good room.
Yeah, anyways, jumping back into Western. So I obviously graduated from Western with a degree in supply chain management. Supply chain management at Western encompasses purchasing, operations, and logistics. I have to give shout outs to obviously Duke, Sean, who you know. You got Professor Dr. Brett Wagner, Shima, and Tim Palmer. They were hugely instrumental to me personally, and I truly believe I would not be where I'm at, you know, mentally, emotionally, even job-wise, if it weren't for them. So, as I was saying, supply chain management, had many offers, come out of college and decided to stay in Michigan where my family's at and get a house and work for General Motors, one of the big three. So I had a 7-year term at GM, 3 different roles.
Wow.
I'll touch on each of them a little bit.
For sure.
The first role that I had at GM was crazy. So GM created this brand new role called program buyers. Okay. And I was essentially responsible for the purchasing and full cycle contract management from start to launch of around 11 different components on the Malibu. So if you remember the Malibu, it was a massive refresh, right? Huge. So I bought everything from like hood prop rods, wheelhouse liners, outside rear mirrors, you know, you name it. It was cool. You touched it. So that team of those buyers, we did everything from purchasing to negotiations to quality management to visiting plants, you know, so we just got thrown in. It was nuts. It was crazy, but it was such a learning experience, and I'm so thankful for it. So that was kind of that was a start of trying to really subconsciously, and I didn't know this at the time, of figuring out what I truly wanted to do. It's been about 2 years. I decided to transition to what's called indirect purchasing. I bought software, hardware, and services for OnStar. So OnStar and the consumer experiences for people who are driving GM cars. Same type of concept where I was responsible for the contract management of the software and services, et cetera. I did a lot of the forecasting. I managed the IT budget for OnStar as well. So that was a very interesting role. It kind of opened up my eyes to both worlds of purchasing. Now, I was there for about, again, 2 years, and my last role at GM was the most influential in my opinion. And the last role I had at GM was in purchasing for the brand new division of self-driving cars and new technology, so autonomous vehicles. I worked my way up to be the global lead, responsible for all the purchasing activity for GM for IT security. And then I also did software, services, and a little bit of hardware. So I served as the voice of purchasing for all of GM on process improvements, where we can improve with our processes and supplier negotiations, or even how we bring forth new suppliers that are completely unheard of, especially in the autonomous industry. It's crazy. After about 2 years of being in this new technology and autonomous vehicle group, I kind of had, my quarter life crisis. It was weird. I wanted something more aligned with my ethos, if that makes sense. Like I wanted to have more of an impact on people and growing something special. And as you can imagine, I'm sure it's insanely hard at GM, right? It's a corporate world. Even though I was a part of all these groups, it's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take a risk, and I did an uncomfortable amount of research and found RPM here in Michigan. And I was actually looking at Arizona. I was looking at California, Charlotte, stumbled across RPM on a LinkedIn page, and it just matched with my ethos, the drive, the grittiness, the giving back to the community. And it was at the size back then when I joined where it was, you could get in at the grassroots and really affect the change. And like I was saying, you can create something special, have more of an impact. There for about 3 months, then transitioned to VP as customer sales, operations, and quality assurance with a massive focus. My focus is still on operations. And still really trying to get the process right. If you think of I'm going to use a plain example, and you have an origin and destination. Let's say it's Detroit to Arizona, and you just started this company, and you have these leadership pieces in place and these processes. You think you have these processes in place, and you take off from Michigan on your way to Arizona. If you're going to have hiccups in startups, no matter what size company you're at. And if you don't have those right processes in place, the backbone in place, you're going to veer off and end up in Utah or Colorado, but you'll eventually get to Arizona. It's just going to take you twice as long. So the point I'm trying to make is if you nail down the backbone of the processes and procedures and the throughput of how things flow through organizations, no matter how big or small you are, you'll make it as quick as you can and optimize as fast as you can, sales-wise, growth-wise, et cetera.
I'm sure that there are a ton of people that are or were in a similar situation that you were in, right? So, like you're in a spot where you're successful. You're working for one of the largest companies on the planet, right? It's a big three. It's at the top of his industry, right? What would you tell people? Like, what would you give them the courage to make a decision like you made? Like, it's very hard to leave something that is so stable and will always probably be there to go off to chase your ethos, as you said. So how would you give someone courage who to make that same decision you made?
Let me start off by answering the question of what a quarter life crisis kind of means to me.
Yeah, great.
And I began thinking about this, and as I alluded to in the conversation, in the third position at GM, where I was a buyer for the new technology group, and I wanted to get more intimate, right? To me, it comes down to really finding out who you are, who you want to be, and what you want to be doing with your life. That's what it means to me. A lot of people, to get back to your point, and I hope a lot of the people that are listening to this are college students. They go through school, and most of us truly don't know what we want to do. And after college, university, or your master's, or whatever it may be, if you go straight through, you may work your way up through a company, just like I did. And you may work for many other different companies too. And you can see a lot of millennials are doing that. To me, this quarter life crisis it's almost a feeling of uncertainty and a question of what you're doing in your life. And to me, it's your wake up moment. A staggering stat that I've researched in the past is that 70% of Americans are disengaged at their jobs currently.
That might be low. That might be a low number.
I agree. Dude, I agree. It's crazy. There's a TED talk back, I think 5 years ago when I was at GM that I saw. His focus is surrounding, making sure that you surround yourself with people that he calls believers. And what does he mean by believers? He means, so let's say I'm going to tell you, Sean, you're one of my close friends. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to quit my job at RPM or GM or wherever I'm at, hypothetically, and I want to start a surf shop in California with a dope restaurant. And you being a believer friend that you are, and especially starting this podcast, you're going to say, Joe, that's awesome. When
I'll
are
be
you going to
hyping
do
you
it?
up, baby. I'll be your
Yeah,
first customer.
right.
Let me get out there.
Seriously, but that's what a believer is. You believe in me, and you're going to constantly ask me week over week, when are you going to do it? So it's almost giving me a sense of accountability. When you find believer friends, you find accountability. They support you and hold you accountable because they care. Coming full circle is, when I was at GM, it's really trying to figure out what I want to do, how I get there, figure out what makes you tick, not your boss, not your parents, not your friends, what makes you tick. And I've always believed the grass is not always greener on the other side. It's where you water it. It's truly where you water it. So the advice that I would give is really try and find your path, dive deep into different positions. And I think that goes back to the conversations with millennials. And I want to get your thoughts on this too. And I don't know the answer to this. Like, I see, and a lot of people say, millennials this, millennials that, they always are constantly changing jobs and wanting something else. Do you think that's because they're finally waking up and they're becoming believers? They're realizing that there's more meaning to life than just going through school and being kind of laissez-faire about a job for 40 years of your life. That's why they're hopping jobs, because they're trying to find that niche that they're ingrained with. I don't know. So that's kind of, I don't know what your thoughts are on millennials and kind of why they maybe choose different jobs. And
So I've been doing a lot of research on it too, because like we're kind of, and me and you we're kind of like the tail end of the millennials too. So it's kind of tough because there's like a whole nother Gen Z or whatever it might be. But I think that the major difference is, if you think about our parents, like they were ingrained that no matter how shitty the job is, you got to be loyal to the company. You have to grind it out 20, 30, 40 years, collect your pension, whatever it might be. And I think the difference between that philosophy and now is, one, we have way more options as a society now. Like, you could literally start a drop shop on your computer and you could be rich, and you could live your life however you want to live. So there's so many more options available. And I think a lot of people realize life is way too short to spend it in an uncomfortable situation or an environment that is like toxic. And it's almost now where companies have to do a better job of, it's like vice versa. Like, the company should be happy to have you. You shouldn't be happy to have the company. And I think that a lot of people are now seeing their worth and their value, and they're like, this company does not treat me very well. Why would I stick around? Whereas the generation above us is like, well, I got good benefits and, I got a decent salary and, maybe, I might not be happy, but pays the bills, and I don't want to be seen as a job hopper. And it's like, now you should, if you're hopping around, unless it's like because you, like, when you interview, like, you're like a victim, for the most part, it's like, I'm looking for more expansion. I'm looking for more growth. I'm looking for more purpose. Like, and I think it's crazy to think that that's like the new normal, where it's no longer going to be people like, if they're staying for 30 years because they love that company and that company probably treats them really, really well. And it's cool to think about it, with you being on the grassroots of a company, like, you're laying that foundation of, am I creating an environment where people are going to stick around for 30 years because they want to, or are they going to leave because I'm creating an environment that is not, fluent to them?
Yes. That's a huge point that I want to touch on. So to your point, what makes me tick and why I chose RPM, and I truly believe I enjoy facilitating those, I'm going to do air quotes, those aha moments, really, that change mindsets and open up new possibilities, right? It's passions about helping people, helping teams and organizations figure out where they are, when they want to be, then helping them get there. I tend to favor, and I believe in servant style leadership. Not leading with fear. And at this role, I kind of find my path, coming full circle again. We have all these processes and being selected by executive leadership and throughput. I truly believe I have a knack for that. And that's kind of my purpose right now. And that's not to say my purpose may change again. I may have another life crisis in a year from now. And I actually may want to go start that restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll still let you be the first guy.
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
That's why I went back to school too. I went back to school at Harvard to get a certificate in leading organizations through a culture of health. So improving the culture, to your point. I went to Cornell to get 3 certificates at change management, high performance leadership, executive leadership, to really hone my skills in on how to really drive change and using servant leadership, et cetera. And then we get into process stuff. There's another like 7 or 8 different certs that I got from the Management and Strategy Institute, where I got like my master black belts and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not karate, but you know.
No, I get it. Yeah.
The other stuff. So all that stuff, putting that together and being on the grassroots, to your point, of a company like RPM, you're able to touch these people and change these processes and use these things and affect them in a way. And going back to my airplane example, get them to Michigan, to Arizona, or whatever your sales goal is, the quickest way possible, along with creating a totally inviting culture that's amazing and fun and people want to come to work.
Yeah, you know? It's an airplane that's going to get from point A to point B quickly and safely. Like the point is that you want to arrive. You know, you don't want to be on an airplane that might go down in Kansas. You know, like it's if we're using that example, just because it's the cheapest plane. You know, so it's tough. So one thing I was going to ask you too that I had written down: what have you been doing to like besides like the outside schooling and stuff? So just you personal growth. What have you been doing during this crazy time of quarantine to like better yourself? Have you been focusing on anything at all?
I have a very, very high stress job in all transparency, and putting the job aside, I think anyone going through this situation, it's important that you take care of yourself, you know, and I want to touch on meditation. So I've been meditating. There's an app called Headspace that
I rock it every morning, baby. I'm on a streak. Yeah. I'm on a streak.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'll add you as a friend if I can. So I've been doing that. Headspace is phenomenal. It literally changed my life. And I mean, what's your experience with Headspace?
So every morning, it's part of my morning routine. So I used to do the 5-minute. Now I'm up to 10 minutes. I want to get to a spot where I'm doing 20 minutes. And I want to get to a point where I'm doing it twice a day. I'm only doing it once a day right now. Because I take it pretty serious. So it's like a commitment, you know, but I feel so good. Cause like, I think that a lot of people, they think of like stress as like a bad thing. If you like what you do, like stress is okay. Like you're okay. It's like, you're allowed to have stress, you know? It's when you don't like what you're doing. That's a whole other thing. But I find that Headspace makes me feel real good walking into the day. Like anything that I might've had baggage wise from yesterday, I kind of leave it at the door. So that's been my experience with it.
Yeah. Yeah. To piggyback off that, I've learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I personally meditate in the morning for 10 minutes, midday for 5, and then another in the afternoon just to kind of settle me down. And then I've actually started trying to do yoga, but
yoga is the hardest thing. This is the hardest thing on the planet. Like I can't wrap my head around it. It's so hard. I can't do it.
I know. Sorry for all you viewers. Don't laugh at us. I completely concur. I agree. I've been on a huge health kick, eat mainly, and how I work out. You know, what I've learned is that you don't need to lift those heavy weights to get big or get in shape. You know, there's so many other ways. Yoga, doing eccentric movements, not as much weight. But really the health kick too I've been on. I've been trying to slowly wean out meats and stuff. And to your point, I mean, it all relates to everything that we're talking about. It affects you personally, mentally, how you perform, your interests, everything.
One of the reasons I'm sure that you're in the role that you're in now, obviously besides the fact that you're great, right, is, I mean, you have the ability now to impact the outcome of those workers' engagement, right? So like you're at the top and it's kind of on you to make sure that your people don't fall into that 70% are disengaged at work. So what are some things that you might either be consciously or subconsciously doing to make sure that you do have an engaged workforce? Because disengagement costs more money than anything on the planet when it comes to like productivity and stuff like that. So what are you doing in a leadership role to hopefully avoid that?
Yeah, so that gets back to what I learned at Harvard too, with creating a culture of health. That's incredibly important. So everything from the littlest details of lighting at work to the music, to TVs, to gamification of stuff if you're in a sales role, you know, putting up on TVs and making it fun. It's the experience that you want people to want them to come back. It's about the structure of the company, if it's hierarchical or flat, right? And I know a lot of Japanese companies right now are moving and have been to flat organizations. Look at like Denso Manufacturing; they're flat.
Do you want to explain what that
CEO
means?
sits,
Do you want to explain what that means?
yeah. So a flat structure. The CEO literally would be sitting right next to me.
Hmm.
And they don't. I wouldn't necessarily report to him, even though I'm under him. You know, we'd work as a team, and I wouldn't be looked down upon to an extent that a hierarchical structure would be. With the hierarchical structure, you'll have different levels of chains of
Got to run up the
communications and
chain.
command.
Got to run it up the chain, baby.
Yeah,
It's the worst.
yeah, and most organizations, especially in the United States, are like that. Big three, etc. But what's interesting is a lot of them, you know, when I was leaving GM, they were actually moving to like an open floor seating. So getting back to my point about making sure the environment's good and great, that, I mean, they're realizing that. I think we're going through a shift right now that's very critical to, you know, our millennial generation and even before us, and making sure that employees that work for GM or whoever may be want to come to work. I would say that. I think leadership is huge. To me, leadership isn't leadership. Leadership is all about guiding people. You guide. You can't lead by telling people what to do. You guide people by, and it goes back to my point about changing people's perspectives and getting those aha moments. That's what I mean by that. You say, hey, Sean, what if you think about it this way? What do you think? And by saying that and saying, what do you think? It gives them, it forces them to think differently and in a way that it changes their mindset so they can get the answer a little bit quicker or be able to start creating those
They have ownership. They have ownership in their answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's what people want. They want nowadays, even more so than anything, they want more accountability and ownership of the work that they're touching.
Yeah. I've always thought of being a leader as kind of breaking down into three things. You're either a teacher, a coach, or a consultant. Like it's all kind of just one big thing, you know?
Yeah.
So that aligns perfectly with kind of how I've always viewed it.
Yeah.
So before we get to the last question, where can people reach you? Where can we connect with you as far as your socials go?
I got LinkedIn. Don't really use Facebook much. I have Instagram.
Stay off
LinkedIn.
there. It's Facebook's a war zone right now. Don't even. It'll take all that positive energy you've been building up and crush you. So don't go on there.
Yep. So
okay.
LinkedIn
So LinkedIn, Instagram. So I always ask a weird one-off question to end these things. Okay.
Oh God.
All right.
Oh God.
So what is it like as life as a triplet? You're a triplet, aren't you?
I knew you were gonna answer.
I have to ask. What is it like?
I'll give you a long-winded answer, but
Perfect.
I'll keep it short at the same time. So growing up, I'll be very transparent. It was hard. We were always being compared. We weren't ever really close until we hit college. After college, we'd call each other. My brother and sister went to state. I went to Western, obviously. We would call each other. We would start asking, you know, how you're doing and what you're doing with your life. You need advice. I'd actually be able to talk to them. And even now, I mean, it's good. It's great. And it's actually fun. And the subconscious fear was that all of our teachers would compare ourselves to, even in sports, between me and my brother and my parents. It was very weird.
How tough life is already growing up. And then you are literally a walking, so it's funny. You're a literal walking podium. Like, are you in first, second, or third? Like, you're just walking around and just medals. Here you go.
Yeah. But I honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's taught me so much growing up and how to act, what not to do, emotionally, mentally. Even now, I would not change it. It's awesome.
But Joe, hey, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited even down the road to have you back on again as you continue to kind of build, you know, the company and your career. I think that we've always been philosophically aligned on a lot of different things, and it's just kind of cool to hear your perspective on all of this. And I'm glad to hear that you are still growing and you're still the happy-go-lucky guy that I met in Australia. And I'm just so excited that you came on, and I'm looking forward to having you on in the future.
No, I appreciate it, Sean, and keep up all the good work you're doing with, the nutrition, this podcast with the Quarter Life Crisis. You're doing awesome things. So keep it up, brother.
All right. We'll be talking soon.
All right, man. Talk soon. Thanks again.
All right, so thank you again, Joe. Man, a lot of good takeaways there. I really love the word ethos. That's something that I'm going to be trying to use as much as possible now, but I think that you did a great job articulating why someone should make the move that you did in terms of being comfortable and then making a move to something you're uncomfortable with. I hope everyone had a very safe 4th of July. It was my first 4th of July that I wasn't back in my hometown on the hometown lake, Devil's Lake, and I looked from the photos that everyone had a blast, and it was super funny because all of my friends that I grew up with were out on the boat with my brother, who's 8 years younger than me. So at least I got to hang out with somebody while I was gone. So I wish I was there, but I enjoyed a more secluded 4th of July over here in the pool. But I hope everyone stays safe, stay distanced, and as always, welcome to the Valley of the Sun.